It just says fertilizer discussion. So if I have no objections from the board, we'll amend the agenda to make that correct. That is, in fact, a public hearing. And just question, so nice to see so many people. Are most of you here to talk about fertilizers? No. So what we'll do is we'll actually, again, if the board has no objection, we'll put that at the top of the agenda. Any objections?
None.
So we did advertise it. And
We did advertise
good,
it.
just to go through that. Yeah.
We did advertise it, so it is legally correct as being advertised. It just did not get correctly labeled on the agenda, and we will do that as our first issue. But before we get going, are there any comments from the public on any issue that is not on today's agenda? Yes, please. Come forward and introduce yourself.
Chris Whitty. I'm here to request that we get on a future agenda for the board. We have some issues to discuss on their sewer issues on Dukes Road. We were at the Board of Selectmen's meeting last night, and they recommended that we come here, so we're here.
Okay, so we can add that for the next agenda formally.
Okay.
And I would suggest you talk to Roberto to really get exactly what the issues are so we can properly address
them. Should we come
them.
into the office to do that?
Yes, sure. Here's my card.
Well, that's all right. I know where the office is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can't have too many copies.
We'll put that on the next agenda, but I just want to make sure it just doesn't say issues, that we really have an issue, an idea of what the issue.
I think Mr. Santamaria is vaguely familiar with what's going on Dukes Road, and I think he's already gotten his ear bent about some questions and concerns that the residents have.
Okay,
so,
well, we will address it appropriately at the next, at the March meeting, which will be the third Thursday in March.
Okay. Now, should we do anything preliminary to that? For example, well, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, just talk to Roberto. I just need a clear idea of the issues and what we're going to be discussing.
We do. We have a number of letters from residents. If you're interested,
are not at the meeting.
Right.
Today.
Okay.
Should I leave those with you?
Leave those with Roberto, and we will discuss it when we have time to study it.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Now, moving along. Review of the January, wait, let me check one thing about March. Wait. Okay, we're all right. Minutes from the January meeting. Those were distributed earlier this week. Does any of the board have any comments, additions, corrections, subtractions, objections?
Not here.
Hearing none, the minutes of January are approved by unanimous consent. Next, waiver request 43 Millbrook Road.
Did you want to do fertilizer?
Thank you.
Going back to the top.
We'll go back to the way we agreed we'd change the agenda. So can you just, we will open the public hearing shortly, but Roberta, you want to just summarize where we are? Because we discussed it at length at the last meeting.
Yes. So the initial idea was to get a fertilizer advisory group together to discuss possible policy changes or regulation changes to the enforcement aspect of the regulation, and then discuss with the advisory group and with members of the professional section of the landscaping to hear the testimony for a new regulation, deliberate it, write up some recommendations, and adopt them. In the ensuing time, the application for the fertilizer advisory group was released There hasn't been anyone applying yet, but then I received an email from Mr. Mizzarelli saying that you'll be distributing it to among your colleagues as well. So we're moving forward towards the advisory group. Unfortunately, we haven't had anyone apply for it yet. The second part of the fertilizer discussion meeting was we recently came in contact with town council on the regulation. Libya did ask town council to take a look. And the only issue that we see, even though the regulation was adopted correctly at a proper time, the only issue that they foresee is that any future changes to fertilizer regulations cannot be made by the Board of Health, rather that they have to be made by the Economic Development and Planning Commission, because it's a regional plan. They're a regional planning authority, and the Department of Agriculture at the state gave them the authority to change regulations. So what we'll have to do on our end is do these recommendations to the regulation, propose our changes, and then we have to propose the changes to the regulation to them at their meeting.
If we have any changes.
If we have any changes.
Just to make it clear, the heart of the regulations we're happy with. The issue was more of enforcement.
Just enforcement,
So
exactly.
we're not going to make them any less rigorous.
Oh, no.
No.
And we're
Because someone in the street asked me that when they heard, no, that's not our objective.
That's not the objective. We're not trying to change the best management practice. We have a very good
Okay.
BMP in place.
So I will open the public hearing, but since we will probably not close it today, because we did announce we're having a public hearing, so we'll have a public hearing. And just, are there any comments from the public, again, on the issues of the advisory committee, which should have got going, but at least we started it now, and any suggestions on better enforcement? I guess that's my question for the public.
Mike Mizzarelli, J&M Landscape Services. I just found out yesterday from Steve Cohen that the interest form for the advisory committee was available. My only comment on it is it was on the town website. That's not my everyday news source or reading. Jeff Carlson from Resources has a big list that he used to distribute information when they had the licensing seminar. Cormac in the Land Council has a list of landscapers. So there's other resources to get the information out there to gain some interest, other than just waiting for it to trickle around from the town website.
No, of course, it was put on the website. It was forwarded to Mr. Carlson. Unfortunately, he is on vacation right now. And then it was also tweeted out and sent over to the Inky, but it hasn't been put in the Inky yet.
Not everybody's a Twitter, but okay. All
Yeah,
right.
naturally, I'll
Thank you.
understand that.
All right.
Thank you.
Any comments, suggestions of way to improve enforcement? That's really the two issues. I mean, the committee can get advised without a great deal of public discussion. And the discussion is, are there better ways to enforce the regulations?
Good evening. My name is Chuck Bramhall. I actually am a fertilizer representative. I sell fertilizer out here for 15 years or more, and I very much support the regulations. I think that the committee did an excellent job putting them together. It's not doom and gloom for me. It's actually something that I have practiced ever since I've been out here. I think it's a very precious island, and I'd like to see it continue that way. I think that enforcement would be through education of the people that are enforcing, too. I did talk to Mr. Santa Maria about that I'd be willing to volunteer some time or whatever to help educate some of the people that are enforcing it, because I know it takes, sometimes 4 years of education plus 2 or 3 years in the field to really understand calibration and so forth, so on. The good news is that all the guys that I work with out here are highly professional and have been following that practice for many years. But I would be willing to work with Jeff Carlson and his group or whoever in coming up with a little cheat sheet sort of thing that could make it easy so that if they are out in the field trying to figure out if they're doing it right or wrong, because it's difficult. It's not easy to figure that out. Then we could have a nice little sheet that they could, have a little checklist, spreader settings, so on for the particular type of fertilizer that they're using. So, but I do want to commend the committee for doing an excellent job of putting together a best management practice. It's going on all over Massachusetts, and I think it's a good thing, and we're certainly finding excellent results with it, and it just needs to be enforced. So, any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Lee Saperstein, former secretary of the Article 68 work group. I'd like to introduce some of my colleagues, Lucinda Young, who was chair and one of the principal authors of the Best Management Plan. Mike Miserelli, you've met, and Mark Lucas. Guys, is there anybody else here from our group? I've heard your plea about enforcement, and I think Mr. Bramhall's comment is right on, because we did, with advice from town council and members of their firm, write a fairly specific enforcement portion of the regulation. But then we said what we really need to be doing is educate the citizenry. We'd much rather have people comply because they feel it's the right thing to do than the fear of losing their license as an applicator, or somebody standing at the edge of their property or even above their property with a reflectance meter trying to figure out just how green this grass really is. By the way, the technology exists. Color infrared photography. But be that as it may, we gave the town a draft 2-page. That would be one sheet, both sides. And we even said, why don't we come up with something not much bigger than a credit card, which would have 3 inches on the side, because we recommend to cut to 3 inches, along with a gauge that you might put into the soil to see how deep it had been watered, along with, as text, just very brief parts. We wrote the regulations to be one size fits all, and then we said, but by the way, one size doesn't really fit all. Go to the best management practice part and tailor it to your property. And so, with credit to the group, and we appreciate the good comments that you've made, there are people who would be more than willing to stand for the advisory committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then we will, if I hear no objections from the board, we will not close the public hearing and continue it in March.
Okay.
I guess my comments is the advisory committee can go on without public hearing and education, and you're working with that with Jeff, yes?
Yes. Yes, so it can continue without public hearing. The only thing, and in light of the newer information from town council, we don't necessarily have to open a public hearing to provide recommendations for the regulation.
Right.
We could close it. However, every time we continue discussion...
Let's leave it open till we come to a conclusion.
Exactly.
That we really can or cannot change anything, or if there's really nothing to change in the enforcement. I mean, we've talked about enforcement, but maybe there's nothing else to do.
It may be education. Maybe an education portion.
Any comments from the board?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And I appreciate all the work you've all done on this, because it's gone around to several other areas. Now we'll go back to waiver request of 43 Millbrook Road.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes, this one. You want to summarize this for us? Or?
Yes. So the Kaisers are asking for a variance from the regulation in Hummock Pond Pomic Pond, I believe. Yes, Pomic Pond for separation to groundwater, because when they had their system tested, even though the system did pass, they did have a technical failure to separation to groundwater. However, in their as-built data, it shows that they are at 5.95 feet away from in depth to groundwater. So their separation is, in theory, less than an inch based on the information.
Do we round off, or?
Well, that's actually one of the questions I have for. That's one of the questions I have for our. Oh wow! I didn't put the workshop on here. That's one of the questions I actually have for the workshop because it's.
Are we doing a workshop today?
We
'Cause
were supposed to.
It's not on the agenda.
But it's not on the agenda. That was my personal mistake. I should have caught that. That is my personal mistake, and I accept full responsibility on that one. But yes, it is one of the questions on policy that we had of should we do a rounding if it's after a certain level? Should we go only on the maps, the groundwater maps, considering that there are neighboring properties in the same area that did fail technically after they've done a soil test. So it becomes a tough situation where data in the same neighborhood show groundwater at around 5 feet, whereas the maps that we have and the as-built data shows groundwater at 6 feet.
Okay. Any comments on the board, questions about this variance?
I mean, if you're any kind of a math major and you get to .95, 5 above, you round up.
Yeah, it might be .95999 for all we know.
That's right.
And I will bet
Exactly.
you if you measure again, it would be .87.
Always. There's
It could
the
go
variability.
It could go either way.
All right, any further discussion on this? Yes.
I'd just like to make a point. I did do soil evaluations on both sides of this property, and as much as I would love to have signed off on appetizers, I would just ask that, if you're considering giving it to them, I mean, we should at least ask Glasgow for a soil evaluation to confirm, because the groundwater there, I don't think it's 595. I think it's less. But that's just a professional opinion.
Okay. Any other addition?
Well, my question is, if we approve this, do we have to put something in writing that the surrounding areas, it's going to have to be
The
5 point?
No, everything is to case-by-case basis. Everyone is doing a variance right now, case by case. The policy going forward would be, do we just round up if it's at .59, 5.9 at that point.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to make a decision after the work group, or?
Well, we're going to do the work. It's not on the agenda. We really can't.
Yeah,
It's really not on the
I
agenda.
didn't put it on the agenda. I can't believe I missed that.
It's really not on the
And
agenda.
the work, remind me of the idea of the work group, sort of to develop policy.
It's just to develop the septic policy, consistent response on what should go to the board and what should we just answer in the office. And it was full intention. We did announce at last meeting that it was going to be this meeting, but I didn't put it on the agenda.
How long would that discussion take?
No more than 10, 15 minutes. It's only a few questions, maybe 5, 6 questions that we have.
Well, we can have it in, it's not on the agenda, but we can have it in your director's report and
Yes.
comments.
We
can do it
did,
that
and
way.
we did say that we were going to have it at this meeting
I
based on
would-
last meeting.
I would just deal with this now.
Okay.
So I need a motion here to approve or disapprove the variance for 43 Millbrook Road.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Do I hear a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of granting the variance?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Chairman votes for. The variance of 5.95 feet is approved. The next one is, you remember,
It's in the packet.
as you remember, the zoning board had asked us to comment.
You'll get a letter from us with your decision.
Okay, we'd like to thank the board. Like I said, we try to do everything as thorough. I've been inside, make sure everything's right, it's clean, anyway, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
asked us, and actually not just asked us, but asked many departments and committees to comment on the 40B development at 106 Surfside Road. And I mean, my opinion is that we really can't comment. I mean, we can comment, I mean, as long as they follow all the rules and regulations from a health department point of view. And until we see that, we can't comment. I think we don't want to get in, well, we need to discuss this from a health board point of view, not other points of view. So this draft letter is essentially from the board saying, as long as all the rules and regulations are followed, it's fine with us from our perspective. There may be other issues about 40B development, but that's not our job. Any comments on this letter?
I have one little comment. I don't know if we should say we don't object to it. If you say you don't object to it, that means you don't care one way or another. I think we should say we're in no position to agree or disagree with it.
Yeah, another way to say it might be something along Jim's line. The Board of Health has considered your request, and as in all such situations, our job is to make sure the rules and regulations are properly implemented and enforced, period, with no comment about the development itself.
Right. Exactly. That's what I want to avoid.
Right.
That. That's not our. That's Mr. Atherton's board can discuss that.
Oh, thanks a lot. Anyway, so I think if we amend this, the zoning board extended comments until, I forget the new date.
To March 21st, I believe, 22nd.
So is that just before or after our next meeting?
Just after our next meeting, I believe.
So if it's just after, why don't we have it just
Okay.
simply redrafted and bring it
Fine.
back that time? It will still be timely then.
All right, sounds
Redraft
good.
it, and I like the comments.
Yes.
So we're not commenting whether we're for it or against it. We're just
doing our job.
We're just
so to
doing our
speak.
job.
Yeah.
You know, if they break the rules, we'll be upset. But they'll have to go through all permitting processes and so forth.
Yeah, they got all that stuff they still have.
All that stuff. Okay. Permit review, 9 Mass Avenue.
So this, you won't have this in your packet,
No.
mainly because it's, what I'm asking the board here is, the permit, this property is one of those properties that has had a conventional or IA septic system approved, a permit that was sitting approved, but the system is not in the ground. Well, as you know, this is now part of the tight tank district.
Yes.
So this permit will, I wanted to just bring to the board for, do you want me to bring the applicant against the board, or should we go ahead and outright deny a permit like we did with North Road, mainly because the rules in which the septic system permit was given no longer applies to this area. And since the septic system is not in the ground yet, it should be a tight tank, and that permit should technically be revoked. So I'm just asking the board here, which way should we just bring them in so that they can amend their permit, or should we just outright deny it?
Comments from the board?
What is, just so maybe Steve can help you, in general, I've always had this feeling that aside from the operating costs on an ongoing basis, the installation of a tight tank is probably not going to be more expensive than an IA.
It's less.
It's less, so it's less. I might have said that, but I wasn't sure. So if it's less, it's not a financial burden for them to change. So it would seem to me you'd call them up and say, here's the deal, I'm going to save you $100 or whatever, and could we just cancel this permit and issue a new one? It's in your interest and ours, or something like that, you know, and see what their response is.
Exactly. The only people able to cancel a permit is the board. I can't do that unilaterally in the office,
Well, I think
which is why I was bringing it up here.
No, wait, so it'd have to come to the board for us to cancel it?
Well, it's on the agenda here. It would have to go over to you because the permit is issued as an IA permit, not a tight tank permit. Tight tanks have to come to the board.
Well, I guess
For approval.
I'm not sure I mind doing that, but my thought had been to make sure it was friendly and that they
Oh,
understood what we were
absolutely.
doing before we just did it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You do it,
So-
you send them a letter, they say, why the hell are you talking to me? And you want to say, hi, I'm Mark
I-
Crowley, I'm your best friend, and here's what I'm doing for you.
I would,
Is there any time pressure?
I like that suggestion.
Okay, so we'll
Before you just give them a call, and
have them resubmit. Makes it a lot easier
because it is
rather than
a tight
killing the
tank.
permit. Because the permit, the time frame is running
Yeah.
out on the permit, so
But it's
if they
it's
were
a
to
tight tank. It's a tight tank zone.
zone, exactly.
So it should be a tight tank.
Okay, perfect. Speaking of tight tanks.
6 Washington Avenue.
Okay, so this property, you may recall, was a property that had a house moved onto the site on the condition that both houses were to have composting toilets put in and gray water systems. So far, the composting toilet has been put in the main house, and the current occupants have had significant difficulty with the composting toilet. So before they go through the expense and the work to install a second composting toilet on the smaller dwelling on the property, they would like to see if they can put the tight tank instead of the composting
This-
toilet.
This is the second dwelling?
This would be the second dwelling on
The
the
one
property.
in the back?
Yes, in the front on Washington.
Yeah, it's much too small for my eyes. Okay,
Don?
okay, questions from the board, or we have, please.
Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. I can add some technical explanation to this. We're asking for a variance to Title V, because in Title V, in order to get the tight tank, you have to demonstrate that there's no other feasible alternative. Well, obviously, in this case, where we have an approved plan for a gray water system and a composting system, that is a feasible alternative. What the owners are asking for in this case, based on the circumstances, special to this area because it is in the Nantucket Harbor Watershed Area, Zone A, and the fact that this commission has looked favorably on tight tanks, and as you were just talking previously, have actually designated areas for tight tanks. We feel that the best alternative for this particular site, given the circumstances of this site, would be a tight tank over the composting toilet. The obvious benefits would be, rather than have 110 gallons per day of gray water going into the existing gray water system, there would be 0 gallons going into the ground. Complete containment within the tight tank itself. As Roberta had mentioned, the owners, this would be more convenient for the owners, and it seems like it would be a benefit for everybody.
Questions, comments from the board?
I have a question. The system that's in the other house works perfect?
Well, it's working. It does have some issues. It's not exactly what they expected or what they want, but it does work.
And if you did the exact same system in this new house, it would work?
It would work, that's correct.
Well, then I don't understand why you would want a tight tank if you can install a system that you've got the drawings for and it would work.
Well, the composting system, does require maintenance, and it's the owners have had difficulty trying to get the system maintained. There are some odor issues that they're not comfortable with. They just feel that this would be the best option for them, and they're hoping that the town also sees it as the best option as far as water quality is concerned.
Steve?
The only problem I have with this is tight tanks aren't for new construction. That house was moved there, and the only way they were able to get that house on that property was the deal they cut with DEP to have the system that's in that ground now with the composting toilets. You grant this variance, and you're opening up a can of worms for people who have a lot out there that just say, well, I'll put a cottage up and put a tight tank in until sewer comes. You can't do it. I don't even know how DEP agreed to let them do this system there. The lot's small, 11,000 square feet. It had a pre-existing house there that was 2 bedrooms, and on that lot of 11,000 square feet, today's regs, you wouldn't even be able to get 2 bedrooms on there.
Do we have the
Without an
authority to grant something like this in disregard with the DEP agreement that they made?
If I could point a few things out about some of what you just said, Steve. That house was always existing, and there was a 2-bedroom septic system already in place for that house. And the way we were able to get DEP and town approval was the house that was moved there back around 2010, 2011 was down the street on the ocean. And so we had to go through a facilities aggregate plan for nitrogen loading. And so we used the land credit from that house down the street, which is allowed because the lot's from the same subdivision. I know that's very convoluted. I didn't want to have to explain that today. I was just trying to keep it simple. But that just gives you a little history on how it was approved. So everything that was done back then was done according to the book. And even if they were to go through with the plan as it is right now, it would still comply.
Right.
You know, I think... And I really don't think in this case you'd be setting a precedent, because I don't know of any other situations like this, because technically this still is not new construction, you know, under Title V. So,
But I still have the problem, though.
What's the
If you
difference
have a
on the
system
new
that's drawn, and you can construct the system, and you know it's going to work, why should we grant a variance if you've got something that's designed and you know it'll work? Why just put it in?
well, again, the owners are here if they want to say something, but we think it's a win-win for both the town and the owners. If it wasn't a benefit to the town, I don't think we would be here. The benefit is we're going to have less flow into the ground from the site than what's already approved.
But the problem goes back to what Stephen said. Then everybody in every street around there is going to end up doing the same thing, just coming in for a waiver, and everybody else is going to want a tight tank, and we just can't go down that road, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I could see if there was a problem putting the new system in, we didn't think it would be legal or it wouldn't work right, but if it's designed and it's working the same as the other system is right next to it, why not just do it?
The system's in.
We have
The
another
gray
comment.
water system.
Yeah.
This is
The owner?
Gail Greenwald. She's the owner.
Yeah, hi. Just to clarify.
Just get to the microphone
Oh.
first.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gail Greenwald. My husband Roy is here with me too. We're the owners of the property. Just to clarify, we did put the composting system in to the home that we moved. It's a seasonal home. We only use it a few weeks per year. The small home, which is the one where we have not yet put it in, is a year-round home. The ones that we did put it in, the problems that we've had have included all kinds of plugging and freezing type issues with it, as well as insects and odor, and it's in a full basement in the home that we moved. The smaller house that does not yet have it yet, it's just got an unfinished, very small cellar. So given, and there also the other comment that I wanted to make is there aren't any of these systems on the island that we're aware of. There may be one other one, but we have not had any luck finding people who know how to do repair or maintenance of them. So we've had to figure that out ourselves. And given that the small home is occupied year-round, we're concerned that the kinds of issues that we've had would be a big problem, and that's why we're making this application.
Okay, interesting. We could say, though, that it's not new construction in the sense that the house has been there.
Well, the only way they were able to do this was to do the composting toilets. Otherwise, they couldn't have moved that other house over there.
And the system you designed was approved, right?
Yes.
See, I'm torn here because I do like the concept that it would certainly be more beneficial to the water and the harbor than what you have now. And someday...
It's gray water. It's only the gray water.
It's the gray water, yeah.
Yeah, it's gray water, so
And someday we'll have sewer there?
Some,
Maybe.
maybe.
All right.
We'll see. Look,
I think we have to address this the way it is right now. I don't think we have to
Yeah, I know.
include sewer
So-
and everything. And
just to make sure I understand that, so there are 2 bedrooms in one and 1 in the other, and so that makes 3 on the whole lot? Is that, I'm trying to go back to the initial thing you were talking about, Steve, where.
It's 2 and 2,
where
I
you-
think.
Is it 2 and 2, so there are 4 on a lot that would not be allowed to have 4 bedrooms under anything that we do, period. And so the credit from this other lot got you there in the first place. And it just, I sense the concern about, precedent is important here, like it or not, Don.
Right.
And there may not be many lots where someone will move a house on, but, these days, someone across the bridge is going to want to move a house right now onto a town-owned lot. We've got a request. And so there's a house right there. It could go on the next-door neighbor's lot, and they share it. I'm just saying it's not so simple to say it won't happen. That's sort of my reluctance. I'm with you, Malcolm, that, tight tanks are great, but right now we don't have tight tanks on this side of the bridge anyway.
No.
And, why the DEP would even approve it if we gave a waiver is sort of beyond me,
Yeah, it's a last resort. for pre-existing.
That's true. It'd have to be approved by the DEP, and I would question.
Yeah.
No?
Not
now.
anymore. They just recently changed that. It's local approving.
It's
authority
local,
now.
we've got the power.
Yeah, they changed that just recently.
We did talk
Mhm.
to
Yeah, I see. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, just recently they
So we
gave
could
that
put
approval to us.
tight tanks on 27 Mattocket lots if they asked for them or if we required them.
Right.
I'm exaggerating to make the point.
Well, you have the authority, that's the point. If you know, just a couple other facts that I'd like you to consider before you make a decision is that, the changes that have occurred since this was approved is the fact that, town sewer is closer than it was, obviously, when we got the design approved, and also town water is out there and available. And when we did the initial design, we had to demonstrate that we could fit a 4-bedroom standard septic system on the property. Dimensionally, we could fit it, and that's shown on the original plan. So if another thing to consider is maybe an administrative consent order, if that's an option, to enter one of those in order to try to get the tight tank. We weren't proposed to offer anything in detail on that. It's just something else I'd like you to consider when you look at it. And both houses could obviously be hooked up to town water. So I think those changes are relevant in making a decision whether or not we have to stick to the same plan that's already approved or whether or not you consider any other options.
Even though you get the 4-bedroom on there, the zoning changed in Mattocket.
Right.
You need 10,000 square feet per bedroom, whether you're on town water or not.
Yeah, but we had the 10,000 square feet per bedroom when we did the nitrogen aggregate plan anyway.
I don't know. Was that a contiguous lot with this property?
No, it's.
I mean, I don't
I-
get, I don't
I know,
understand-
it's sort of a
I don't
loophole,
understand
Steve,
how
I
they gave
understand.
credit for a property down the
Yeah.
road onto a
Yeah.
property here. That
And you're-
does not make sense to
Well,
me.
and you're correct. This was all done before the bylaw, so that 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet wasn't a factor. The only factor was Title V for the 1 bedroom, 10,000 square feet for a house served by a septic system and a well. But Title V does allow you to use get an aggregate plan approved if you have lots in the same subdivision, and one of those lots can be used as land credit, and that's
So
the
do we-
process we used.
For example,
That's
But in the
the same subdivision?
It's
That's not a
considered the same
subdivision.
Well, again, we did have to get that clarified with DEP, and DEP approved it as falling within the definition of being within the same subdivision. There's no
Most
def-
of the other ones we've seen from you
Yeah.
are true contiguous ownerships, or like the one you didn't put
Well,
in it. And
I agree. This is a very unusual situation. It's the first time I've seen anything like this, and it's worked, and permits were issued. So, that's why I said earlier, I think it's a unique situation.
So I want to hear an argument about this precedence we always seem to talk about. Is it a true, will we be opening up that can of worms or not? Because this is a
I
unique,
think so.
I think it's very unique myself.
it's unique.
I think you'll be setting precedent, because this is new construction. For them to move that there, they had to put a compliant septic system on that lot.
Okay.
The composting toilet, and gray water system is compliant. It's the
Right.
only thing they can put on there.
So it is new construction, it is compliant. So,
In gray water systems, you can, they don't have a problem with groundwater there, but gray water systems have a separation of 3 feet to groundwater, not 6. You can go to 3.
The other aspect, though, is I don't know about using the word precedent, but as a statistician, this is an incident. This is the only case in which case this has happened so far. So I don't know about if we're setting a precedent, but we would still have to take everything case by case anytime it gets brought up.
But believe me,
but
it would be a precedent when people start coming.
I know somebody who will come in tomorrow.
That's right.
all right.
Well, my problem is, the whole thing is, he has the system designed, he can install it, and it will work. So I don't see any problem just doing it the way, with the system that he
It's
has.
the pleasure of the board.
Go ahead, please. Because we're about to vote here because we're starting to cycle around again.
And I appreciate all the time you're putting in. My only comment is I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer, and I ran a mechanical contracting business. And I'm the one who's keeping the system running. The one we're talking about putting in, I don't believe will work in the winter in a year-round house. We come out here sometimes in the winter in our house, and the lines freeze up, they plug up. We've had overflowing black water in the basement, and the house that's there has my sister-in-law living there year-round alone. And there really are not any plumbers or any help on the island with these that we've been able to find at all. And that's my biggest concern, is having her in that house with a system that I don't think she can handle alone. Living with it in a seasonal home, I'm absolutely willing to deal with it and live with it, and we did agree to that. But the conditions are so different than what we expected that that's my only concern, is that this is, if we had known what we were agreeing to, because we never lived with it, nobody could advise us about it, we may not have moved the house. We may have literally gotten rid of the small house and just moved the big house. So wintertime is going to be a huge issue for her, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, I just have one more
One more
question.
thing and then we'll vote.
I just have one more question. Tight tanks, other than being over the bridge, were only acceptable for summer use, right? They weren't for
No,
you? They weren't? Okay.
No, they've been approved for year-round
Okay,
use.
all right, okay.
We did. There has been already on the
Yeah.
island.
Okay.
All right. I think we've had enough discussion, and I think we'll go to a vote. Would someone like to propose a motion? Well, go ahead.
Jim, I think the way you phrased the motion was a good one. If they had an existing system that's approved that could meet their needs, as unperfect as they are, and therefore you would recommend we deny the waiver.
Yeah, essentially, the motion would be to deny the waiver.
Yeah, anyway.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, now this would be in favor of denying the waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes against denying the waiver, so the vote is 3-1, and the waiver is denied. Okay, Crooked Lane.
Okay.
Almost moved there once.
It's a great area. So you'll see, yes, that's true. You'll see on your packet, the line didn't print out. You'll see on your packet the two pictures for 21 Crooked Lane here. The map and parcel, here it is. It's on the second picture of Crooked Lane. Yes, sir.
I think I can sit on this because Billy and I
Okay.
Okay, we still have a quorum with
We
three.
still have a quorum.
But this map says Westchester. Where's?
That's, the road keeps going across Crooked, and it's not, that part's not paved, but it still is part of Westchester.
This is the unpaved part of Westchester.
Yes.
Okay.
So, no, it's the way the parcel is. It is a pretty massive parcel. It is a crooked lane parcel. Just the location of where the house is. This is just the location on the parcel of where it is. The variance request that is here is to request relief so that Mr. Cassidy does not have to do the inspection for his system, considering the system is over 200 feet away from the border of Hummock Pond Zone B. I'll let Mr. Cassidy
So
also
wait
speak.
a second. So it has been inspected?
No, he's requesting the variance in order to not inspect it, in accordance to the Hummock Pond regulation.
And what zone are they in?
B.
B.
Yes, this is Zone B, and the system is 200 feet
We've
out
done this.
of
We've
B.
had these before.
Yeah.
Do you want to make any comments, sir? Just identify yourself.
My name is Billy Cassidy, 21 Crooked Lane. A couple of things. Number one, Mr. Santamaria points out that I suppose that I'm asking for, I don't know what I'm asking for. And whether or not
you're in
it
Zone
has,
B and you have to have your
the septic system
inspected.
The fact of the matter is I don't have the plan that you guys are looking at right now. I'm not even certain that I still own the property where the line goes through. We just transferred 20 of the 30 acres that I owned last month to the land bank. But in any event, the line that demarcates, is it a Zone B? You said this.
Just touches the property.
Yeah,
So the system itself is way out. It
It's
touches
way out,
one
yeah.
little corner someplace. Gotcha. This
yes,
sounds like the
it's-
other ones.
We've done two of these. Yeah,
yes, it's not. It's
Yeah, I understand.
it's over there somewhere.
I understand. The system itself is
Outside the line.
outside the line.
Exactly.
Any comments from the board? Questions?
No, it sounds like we'd be consistent with our other
Be
votes.
consistent
by
with past. So you're asking.
approving the waiver.
We're approving a waiver. May I have a motion to approve the waiver?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. The waiver is approved.
Thank you.
Consistent with our other activities. We have some ACO requests.
Yes. So just like the other two ACO requests, you won't see it in the packet. It's mostly the information.
Yeah.
These three properties, I would recommend, let's take the three properties, 255 Nantucket, 324 Nantucket, and 326 Nantucket together. They're all in a similar situation. They're looking to just do the Band-Aid repair, enter the ACO, just like we normally do. Mr. Jennison for 255 Nantucket has come in. He is in hydraulic failure, so he is looking for this sooner rather than later so that he can get the repairs done. It's straightforward ACO. We recommend.
Questions,
approval.
comments from the board? Do I have a motion to approve the three ACO requests of 255 Nantucket, 324 Nantucket, and 326 Nantucket?
Motion to approve.
Further discussion? All in favor of granting the ACO requests for the three properties previously mentioned, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye. ACOs are approved. We have we have two.
Could I ask you a quick question just on the ACOs?
Yes, sir.
Do you know offhand how much they're going to put in each year? I mean,
Uh,
don't
oh.
spend a lot of time. I was just curious.
It should be on the ACO amortization. It's on the table that they get. Every property is a little different because it's based on the quote.
Based on the quote for putting in the septic.
Yeah, the septic, exactly.
So if the septic quote is higher, the ACO per year is a little bit
higher. Exactly.
That's enough. Thank you.
Okay. We have some condemnation orders.
There's two condemnation orders, actually.
Yes.
The first one is for Kinnickinnick Way. You may have heard recently that there was a fire at this property. And when we were called there, once fire came to the property, they took care of the situation. They gave us a call, and Artel and Kathy responded. The property had an illegal basement apartment. The property damage, the fire damage was pretty extensive, and there were definite overcrowding issues at the property. There were observed, 8 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms? 6 bedrooms at the property, even though the property is only allowed to have permitted for 3 bedrooms. Source of the fire has not been told to us. However, the property is so severely damaged and so overcrowded that we were asking for condemnation of the property.
The whole property, not just the basement.
The whole property until the repairs are complete, but then the basement in perpetuity, because it is an illegal basement apartment, and it is against the use of the building.
And the house is empty, right?
The house currently is empty.
Has anyone ever made an estimation of the number of basements like this on the island? It seems
I think it's
not uncommon.
It's definitely not uncommon. It's but the issue is there are basements that we have as unfinished, and then when there's a response and we get in there, there's drywall up, there's a nice windows, whole 9 yards.
Pretty finished.
Exactly, it's pretty finished.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Comments from the board? Do I have a motion to approve the condemnation?
Sure, so moved.
Second, anyone?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor of the condemnation
Aye.
of 4 Kinney Picnic Way? Aye. Chairman says aye. That's approved. And you have another one?
Yes. Similar situation, except without the fire. There were 2 bedrooms present in the basement at this 13 Chatham Road. There was an inspection a joint inspection with fire department where there were various fire violations as well. The property is not in compliance with anything on the housing code. These 2 bedrooms in the basement, so we're asking to condemn those basements formally, deem them unfit for habitation in perpetuity, because this is an illegal basement no matter what.
Questions from the board?
Was this found on an inspection that you did, or?
This was based on a complaint, I believe.
A complaint?
Yes.
All right. Hearing no discussion, we have a motion to approve the condemnation of 14 Chatham Road.
So moved.
Second? Any further discussion? All in favor of condemnation of 13 Chatham Road, a.k.a. Pulpus Road, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. It's approved.
Okay.
We did the fertilizer discussion, which, again, will get back to us if we even need a public hearing.
Exactly.
But your goal should be just get this educational program
The education is probably the biggest portion of all of this.
And then what we'll do in your director's reports, you can ask in your director's report some guidance on some of these issues that you have.
Exactly. So just some basic moving forward information before we get to some of the septic questions that we have is there's been a lot of questions regarding this microcephaly and Zika virus outbreak that's going on around the country, around the world. And there's been a lot of questions on fears of it coming to us, mainly because we have a large mosquito population. So I have been in contact with a few of my colleagues down at the vector-borne diseases and CDC, as well as at the state. And the general consensus is the mosquito that carry this disease, as well as other diseases, is not really found here in Massachusetts.
Dengue and West Nile.
Exactly. It's the Aedes aegypti mosquito is the main carrier for the Zika virus. The Aedes aegypti is mostly found closer towards the equator, areas like Brazil, Central America, Mexico, and some areas of Florida. And what the Aedes aegypti carries is dengue, yellow fever, Zika, and chikungunya and West Nile.
He carries all those things?
It can carry all of it simultaneously, no less. So that mosquito isn't necessarily endemic here. There is no information so far to suggest that other mosquitoes can carry these viruses as well. So I wouldn't say there's nothing to worry about here on Nantucket, but it is definitely something that is low on our priority. And in the situation that an Aedes aegypti mosquito nest is found on Nantucket, Zika is the least of our worries, considering the other diseases we mentioned.
Yeah, but we have made progress with mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. Too bad Elaine isn't here, because she's a representative on the
mosquito board.
So
I have been assured by my colleagues at the state and federal that the Zika virus will mostly be imported cases. We will see them, and it might become endemic in certain areas of the United States. But as far as Massachusetts and New England in general is concerned, it's a very low risk of bringing that virus up here.
I'll send it to you. There was a very nice short article by Anthony Fauci in this week's New England Journal of Medicine, just kind of saying those same things with a nice little background in the sense that, we need to be aware.
Yes.
And pay attention. And
the most important part right now is the same thing with education. If people are going to visit these countries, take certain precautions, things like that. However, the fear of them bringing it back with them and making it to having transmission here, it's a very low risk.
There was one case reported, I think, in Texas of sexually
transmitted.
Or they think.
Yes.
They think.
They think so far it's only a case report. They believe that's the case because it has been found in sexual fluids, but it's so far it's the only case that's been transmitted in that manner.
Okay.
So it's a brief update on that. We have been following up a lot with, there's been a lot of sewer questions. I was going to bring it up today regardless of whether Dukes was here. There has been a lot of sewer questions regarding the capacity of sewer, situations like private sewer lines being brought in and then adopted by the town. Just wanted to keep the board informed that the town manager has been in contact with myself and Kara at DPW and Silvio at DPW to draft a sort of FAQ as well as brochure, a what you need to know about sewer takings. There's a lot of misinformation being passed around among the Dukes Road community and other communities that fear this sort of response. The DPW assures us that the sewer that was installed is to town specifications. It is capable of handling the build-out of the neighborhood. Build-out to more than one property on more than one house on every property, that's a different story. That's a build-out above and beyond what was expected through zoning at the time. However, the current sewer line that is in there is capable of carrying the effluent coming out of these houses. The concept of the conversation about why do they have to install grinder pumps, why do they have to do all this, and it's more expensive for them rather than a gravity line, which would have been the more economical version. Well, that property, they're below the sewer line. They would have, no matter what, whether it was an 8-inch line, a 12-inch line, or a 40-inch pipe, aqueduct, they would still need pumps to connect to the sewer. Because they are below the line, they are pumping their effluent up gradient to the line. So that's part of the information that we need to get out, that we feel as staff that somewhere along the line that piece of information wasn't communicated to the residents when the line was being put in. So we're working on a brochure and an FAQ that we can get out to the entire neighborhood with all the information about why things are moving forward the way they did.
Would that be ready in the month?
It should be ready within the next few weeks.
I didn't want to put them off, but I wanted to make sure we're
yes
all.
And the town
and in fairness to them, we will put it on the agenda. to discuss
Absolutely. And the town manager has also, in light of some of the conversation yesterday at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, she is entertaining the idea of having us hold a meeting with the neighborhood community there, bringing a specific meeting between DPW and myself to the Dukes Road community to meet with them and explain why this happened the way it did. They believe that there is some injustice with the requiring them to connect within 6 months. We could entertain variances. Every Board of Health regulation is allowed to be varied as long as people apply for the variance. Nobody on that road has exercised that right yet. So that's another part of the education.
Maybe next week we'll get 20 of them. So
Exactly.
All right, fine.
And then other simple questions as far as the septic issues that we've been dealing with are separation of groundwater. Do we want to stick to our guns with specific 6-foot separation in the Hummock Pond area? We every once in a while run into situations of, like this one, 5.95 feet. Do we want to stick to our guns to 6 feet? Do we want to give or take 0.01 or 0.1 feet of groundwater? Because once you start getting down to 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches of separation, well, then it's no longer an effective regulation.
All right, comments on the board? Any feelings on that?
I suppose my first reaction is not codify it.
No, this is a guideline
I'm just trying
discussion.
to struggle.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've done so many inspections, and, a prior director, and I don't know if he had the authority to do this, would, whether it was 5.85 or 5.9 or 5.6, he sometimes would sign off on it as passed and say it was de minimis. So he kind of set a little precedence there.
And that's part of what we want to...
there's a lot of them, there's a lot of them that way, more than you think.
Exactly.
Because, the old code, prior to our regulation change to make it 6 foot, we were 5. The state is 4. Even right now, unless you're in soils of less than 2 minutes of inch perk rate. As soon as it goes up, then they went to 5. We always been 1 foot above.
The other part that comes down to is if we stick to the 6 foot, and if I don't get the authority to do things like that for de minimis, every single time that something like this gets brought up, it has to be brought to the board for a variance.
How many times will that happen, though? This is the first time
So far, this is the first time. But just like we were talking about with the tight tanks, maybe this is a precedent.
Let me ask a question. When we say 6 foot, when they check that, how accurate is that?
There's always a variability. There's always a variability with groundwater. When a lot of these were built, when a lot of systems were built, they just went by the HWH maps. And if the map says 13 feet, they wrote 13 feet to groundwater. They did their hole, they didn't see any groundwater. That's where it is.
I dug a lot of test holes too, but it doesn't mean that next scoop
exactly.
that you couldn't get, groundwater was right there.
Exactly.
We used to, we used to dig holes and, we'd let the water, if it was a shallow water table, we'd let the water settle for a little bit and then stick where the water was at the time, and that was groundwater. It's not the way they read soils now.
Yeah, there's things that are looked for now that were not looked for pre-95. If we're finding the redox levels, the what people call models, you find the redox levels there. You're looking at information as to whether the water is perched or whether it is groundwater or it is seasonal groundwater or other issues that are happening on the soils there that you can't necessarily see on this map. We've been taking the map as gospel, because we don't have the manpower to go out and test every single thing ourselves. However, when we do our soil evaluations and we do take our looks, we get some situations where everything is sand, where my first week here, Art and I did a few holes where as we were digging, we got to 8 feet and then everything caved. You get down to 6 feet again, all the sand around it caves in. Getting down to the full 10 feet is really hard. So it just becomes a little bit harder to gauge where the groundwater is, and there is variability built into groundwater based on temperature, drought, the whole 9 yards.
I can't imagine 5.95. The next time it would be something different.
Well, that's based on the elevations that were printed on the as-built at the time of, when.
Well, any of this discussion is guidelines for you. Right? I mean,
can we?
I don't know if anyone else has a different opinion, but I haven't seen. That's the first time I've seen a variance like that.
Exactly. This is the first time we've seen it.
I mean, I'd hate to have you go. I would just as soon like to see them for a while.
Okay.
That's
because
my opinion. I don't know if people disappear. Now, if we get 20 of them at 5 point something, then.
Because there's one person that's in my head right now, and her system failed by only 3 inches, and she was threatening a class action lawsuit because she has to put in an IA. And exactly.
That's not 595.
So it's
just rounding. That's not 6. So
okay.
In how you round. So, no, I mean, if the rest of the board has no objection, I would.
I think that's a good idea.
Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
It lets us know what we're getting into and why not.
Sounds good. The one that we just did also where the system was out of a hummock pond, do we want to set a buffer for these areas? If it's more than 10 feet out of the zone, do we want to have them come in? Are they part of hummock pond or are they part of the watershed?
I would say if you're not, that line is where the nitrogen's, where it flows. I say if
exactly.
You're not in it. I don't think you should have to do it.
Do you want us to even have them come in for a variance, or do you want us to just do that interior? That's really the question.
You guys could look that up easily, and make a decision in the office.
As long as the system was
outside.
Outside of the zone.
The system is outside by a reasonable. I mean, if it's right next to it, that's another. Mm-hmm. I'm comfortable with you using your judgment.
Okay.
If the system is significantly outside, if it's like next to it, then.
Okay. Wasn't one of the ones like Bartlett or one of those pretty close?
No, Bartlett was pretty far, but the other one was.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, there was one that was relatively close. It was about 50 feet.
50 feet is 50 feet.
Yeah.
That's not 1 foot.
But I think you're going to need a number. You can't say reasonably close, or they're going to come in and say, well, what's reasonably close?
So if the map has a
Is
line
it 2
on it,
feet?
you can just say
Is
the
it
map
8
is the map.
feet? Is it 20 feet? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Simplicity, they designated a zone, this is what contributes, if it's in, being the septic system, if it's out,
it's out.
That's really what Steve was saying, the line is the line, so until it's an issue.
That's fine.
So then officially we have the authority to just
Well, that's your guidelines.
use the guideline. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
These are guidelines because officially it has a whole
Okay.
legal connotation.
Makes
These are
sense.
guidelines.
These are guidelines. Absolutely.
We're always here if you have
Questions
if you're
on it.
uncomfortable with the guidelines.
Absolutely. The other sections that were being brought in are the questions on septic to sewer connections.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these septic to sewer people like I said, no one has exercised their right to their variance yet. However, we're getting a lot of chatter. How many letters are these? And we're getting, there's letters to the town manager, letters to the selectmen, letters everywhere about this, yet no one has exercised their right to the variance. However, coming forward, the variance request on the application, on I believe it's Regulation 69, the variance request has a portion in there that says that, actually, if you have it, that'd be perfect. 69.05 it is. That we just, Have them bring it. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. 69.05. The part that makes me a little off is because in right behind back to back, it specifically says no variance shall be granted for environmentally sensitive areas or areas defined by the Nantucket Board of Health as groundwater, harbor, or water body protection districts. Then immediately after that, there's another one that says variances shall be considered for on-site disposal systems installed 5 years or less before sanitary sewer is installed or completed. So those two are a little hard, considering they're back-to-back, and Dukes Road is in a environmentally sensitive area.
Right.
So considering that legally they're allowed to exercise their right to a variance on any regulation, no matter what, my question to the board is, should we outright not entertain variances for the Dukes Road properties, or should we just hold this hearing with them? Because this is becoming a little issue here where we have said they're not entitled to a variance, but then there are some properties that have repaired their systems within the last 2 years.
There isn't anybody on Dukes Road that's repaired their system in the last 5 years.
In the last 5 years? So
See,
then-
I mean, I think we should be very strict on variances.
Mhm.
I mean, look at what we've gone through to get
Exactly.
sewer. It's been a very long, tough process. But, I mean, they have the right to, we can't just say no.
Okay.
I think you can inform them it's going to be a tough haul. As Rick said about calling people and telling them it's not going to be
Exactly.
easy.
Just,
In-
go ahead.
in-
But
They're in Zone B of Hummock Pond Watershed, so whenever those letters went out and then out again, there's only a couple people of my clients that I've actually done inspections when those letters came out. Only a couple of them out of all those people on Dukes Road. And they haven't called, they haven't for a reason. And because they're not going to like the news,
We've had many discussions about how they know what's going to happen if they have their systems inspected.
Okay, yeah, could we just sort of get at that a little bit? Because I know at the board we have all these people writing letters, and that's fine, that's part of the deal. But it seems to me a process that, so we have inspections in Nantucket, in Hummock Pond,
Pond, Watershed.
and a process of variance here without an inspection. We could always, it depends what the variance is. We could end up, just so other members understand, saying because of the conflicting information and you had suffered an emotional distress, we'll give you an extra
2 months.
13 and a half months.
right.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's maybe all that's necessary, whatever it is. It gives them something, and maybe that's appropriate because of that, but not because of the underlying facts on the ground.
Exactly.
And we need to think about a process here that says you are in a needs area, and it may not be quite the same needs area as we have on the maps for Monomoy, but you're under our radar now. You could have not complained,
It's-
but now that you did, we're on you.
Right, the
So-
6-month time frame has got them all in a panic. I mean, the board knows that you can't get all that work done.
Yeah.
So
The
what
work
I've
has to
done
get
for a couple
started.
clients there, they said, well, at least show that you're moving forward, pull the permit. Once you pull the permit, you have a year from
Exactly.
then. But maybe we could extend that time.
Okay,
And,
so we've been having the same conversation. We've been saying exactly the same information, that they all have the right to apply.
Yes.
They need to have the information. We were just definitely making sure we had the backing before we considered saying that again in more public forums.
But I think it's important the board does understand what, you hate to keep saying precedent, but anyway, assuming something gets approved at town meeting and sewer actually gets laid, there might be a lot of people who come in and say, oh my golly whiz, I don't want to hook up in 6 months, I want to hook up in 5 years. And you give these guys an extra year.
Right.
And they're going to give me an extra year. I can just, and
understand.
they're in needs areas. So these folks are in a unique situation where the sewer did go in for other reasons, and not the same reason the town's moving to put sewer. So there are distinctions we are going to have to think about. as
Right.
we
No.
hear this
Okay.
stuff.
And so that's everything I had. If Art, you had.
Yes, so water in Hummock Pond, town water in Hummock Pond.
That's right.
B, the board decided in A that you were not going to be exempt for one bedroom for every 10,000 square feet of property.
Right.
You had town water. And B, you, in the,
Stayed
when I read
silent.
the minutes, you weren't ready to make any decision, you really made no comment. So,
Yeah, we only voted on A. We didn't really,
yeah, so
Yeah.
you didn't put it in, so where we're struggling is this board has delineated that zone nitrogen sensitive. All right, and I think where the confusion sometimes ends up is Title V delineates nitrogen sensitive as well and septic. Once you remove the well and go to town water, it's no longer nitrogen sensitive. This board has already delineated it
Yes.
nitrogen sensitive. So, you know, we're seeing some of these undersized lots. The question is, if they don't meet the one for every 10,000, you know,
If they have town water,
yeah, if they have
is it
town
no
water,
longer?
do you recall why we didn't include B?
You weren't ready at the time. If you read the minutes,
I
You
mean, we
didn't-
weren't ready at the time.
You just
Why-
weren't
why-
ready to make the decision. It's
Ah.
simply what was said.
Yeah, there's a
Nothing
plus,
very
I think
much
I
more.
brought up, there's a lot of people who own lots that are in that B area that have access to town water, and they haven't done anything with them yet.
That's exactly right. That's what you brought up that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of town water in Zone B.
So the question is, IA, not IA, where
I would-
we're using the same regulation as we would use in Nantucket Harbor watershed
Yeah.
to cover
Well-
that area, which on North Road was the same.
Well,
That's new
no,
construction.
that's new, right,
Yeah,
well,
new construction.
I mean, plus, you know, you took away the bedroom credit
Well, that's the next
in,
question. I want-
in Nantucket Harbor, so,
That's a
I mean,
separate-
I would have no problem with if somebody had a half-acre lot that had town water and that was in B, they use a nitrogen-sensitive septic, but instead of being limited to the 3 bedrooms on, say, the half-acre lot.
No,
if-
that's a nice, if they're gonna put in, I mean, that's the direction sort of looking for, you're gonna put in IA, kind of like what you did in Nantucket. You allowed one more bedroom than I think
You know, we gave the half acres 4, and we gave the 10,000s 3.
Is this like the Fisher Landing lots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are case by case, but I
Case,
hear
yeah.
you, that's interesting, yeah.
So, we're struggling, when we get permits coming in, it's not,
Yeah.
We can certainly.
Applying the
Yeah, make
formula is a little hard.
decision, but it may end up here for you. So just a little direction on that. Applying the Nantucket scenario.
Similar.
I don't know if this is just something to be thought about too, and addressed in the
Are we
next
talking
meeting.
about 22 lots, 6? Do you have any sense?
Oof, I don't know.
Well, how would you,
Thousands
No,
subdivisions.
no, it wouldn't be
But,
that
you know,
high,
just-
yeah.
how would you like us, how would you,
There aren't that many vacant lots left out there, you know, or subdividable land.
An example is like
Are these
Mr.
like
Dimick.
Pumpkin
He's-
Farm?
if he doesn't get his sewer,
That's right. Yeah, yeah, because he's.
And he got in
that's
the
right,
zone.
He's in B, yeah.
And he got in the sewer district, and he's supposed to pay for the pipe to go down that road when he does something. So,
Is he in the sewer district now?
I
No,
think,
that Pumpkin
didn't-
Farm Road is not going to be in the district as far as,
Not the
from
new
what I
district.
understand, they're just using Millbrook Road to bring the line through, and nobody on there can.
no, but I thought we had it may not be Pumpkin Farm, I'm thinking of the guy Kelly,
Yeah.
who came down, and it may have been some lots just,
His touches the back there of Marty's
so
bigger
maybe it
piece.
was Marty's lot itself, but there's some other ones where.
Yeah, they brought it all the way up to, actually, my uncle's property, which is the Larrabees. It stopped right there. And then Terrence Mr. Kelly put the line in along some of the other property owners there. It stopped at a certain point. You can look it on the, it's
They
on
got
the
down
map.
to Aurora Road, and then maybe they went further for something.
They
So-
did, yeah, they went down a
you
little
said
bit.
address it, how do you want us to address this? For your suggestion?
a suggestion, IA is going to be required on,
Yeah.
one for every, even on repair.
Yeah.
And then,
The
maybe
bedroom.
handle the extra bedroom on a vacant lot like we did with
Yeah, no.
Nantucket. If that's, seems reasonable, we get the nitrogen reduction in all B, whether
I'm
on
quite
town
comfortable
water
with
or
that.
not. And on anything new or new construction, they would get, I think, one more than.
the IA would allow.
All right, let me ask you a question. That Hummock Pond Farms on the left-hand side going out with those 36 lots that I developed years ago, almost to the beach on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
This is just
Those-
before Hellers?
Yeah.
Right
Yes,
after Hellers.
No, right before Hellers.
Not Ahab.
Yeah, Ahab.
Yeah, that's before Hellers.
Going out?
On the left, yeah.
Yeah.
Hellers is right after.
Do we
Okay.
do we have to readdress the regulations of B?
No, the regulation stays silent on this.
Yeah.
There is no reference to nitrogen sensitivity in the Hummock Pond Zone B when it comes to town water. So it's just, and it would be an internal working.
Yeah,
no matter
well-
what.
Here's my question. Though, is that in Section B?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, now, when I developed those, there was only one dwelling per lot, and that all ran out in 30 years. And now when I go through there, everybody's starting to put second dwellings in those lots in there. Now, are they doing separate septic systems?
Those lots are 20,000 square feet?
Yeah, small.
No, some of them are half acres, some of them are
Yeah.
3/4 of an acre.
Okay, so they're gonna be held to one bedroom for every 10,000 or
The
whatever.
pre-existing.
They're gonna be, but what have they been doing now?
I haven't seen anything that.
Because I drive by there and I see them going in slowly but surely.
That will be on your desk anyways. When, a lot of the
Yeah,
systems
come to
were
us.
mostly 4 bedrooms. They have 3 in the house and they're going to put a bedroom.
So they're just tying it to the existing.
To what they already have.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or if it fails, they'd have to replace with if they're in the zone, replace with IA
Yeah.
and get,
Okay.
they get what's pre-existing.
So what else we
So-
guide you on?
The last one would be bedroom credit. The feel I think we got was, and we've been applying it in all zones, that we're not giving bedroom credits with IA in any zone, I'm talking Nantucket Harbor Watershed, Hummock Pond, and Nantucket. Outside those zones, we are allowing bedroom credit.
Yes, that's what we've done.
And the wellhead, excuse me, the wellheads. yeah.
Oh, in the wellhead, yeah.
So when those 4 zones, we're not allowing bedroom credits.
That sounds like what we're
It sounds like what we're doing.
Okay.
Right.
Anything else we can?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a couple questions. Just back to Duke's Road, sorry.
Yes,
for
sir.
so-
No, absolutely.
Just on the gravity question into the sewer line that's there, some of the, when you go out Duke's Road, the ones on the left are higher. I mean, so would they gravity into the line? I mean,
The line in Nantucket Road, which is underneath the bike path, veers off to Duke's Road. It only goes in just past the tar where there's a manhole, and then
yeah.
the only way that I mean, if the first few houses wanted to extend that gravity, yes, they could have extended it, but they are still on the septic there. So
I guess I'm sorry to be so picky here, but I just want to understand. I can understand a house that was off on the left and is really clearly has to go uphill to get into the line, which probably isn't very deep. But the house on the left might be high enough so it could flow into the new line. That's all.
well, the new line is a
Low pressure.
Is a low pressure line. So every dwelling has to have a low pressure grinder pump.
So they have a grinder pump no matter what.
No matter what.
Partly because they're grinding up the stuff.
You have to. Yeah, it has to be macerated. Yeah.
Okay, and that those units have pumps anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Well, we just got to.
What we've done on a few of them already is just retrofitted their existing septic tank
system.
and used it as the pump chamber. And then from there, you go out with a control panel and the line that ties into the line that's in the street.
The other aspect that DPW explained to me too is in order to maintain a regular gravity runoff line, even though this is a low-pressure line. But even if it was a gravity line, in order to maintain the gravity line from where the house is to where the line is, they need to maintain a 1-degree pitch the entire way. A lot of the houses don't have enough of the raise to maintain
Clearly, the
that,
ones
that
on
pitch.
on the west side don't, the ones on the other side might, but it's that good.
Okay, so we will address that in detail once we're a little educated.
One more thing, sorry.
That's okay.
Several times at the Board of Selectmen meetings, people have said, gee, and I think I've mentioned this here before, what do we do or should we do about all the, rooftops and it's like creating more stormwater runoff. So I don't know whether that's our problem or the building department's problem, but I'd like at least to ask Roberto to think about that. Is it an issue at all? I mean, if we put
Rooftop runoff?
yeah, to me, it's not any different than stormwater runoff over downtown. I mean, it's a little different because but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been asking. So people say if you build a 10-bedroom house someplace, that's a lot of rooftops, and they have hardtop all around the place, and they have pools and patios, and all of a sudden the hard surfaces are 10,000 square feet. I'm making up a number.
Mm-hmm.
Is that getting to be a point where it's something we should think about managing?
I know.
I don't know how you
We'll have to
I
look
know
into
another
that.
thing we should think about.
I know in
Rainwater
other
capture
communities
and-
off island, before you go to submit your plan for your house, one of the first things they want to see is what are you doing with the water?
With the runoff, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because it's an issue, and it's a big issue in other places where they, if you're in, I'm just saying New Hampshire or Maine, or you got you dig 2 inches and you're in water, they want to know where the water's going.
Right. So we might want, maybe you talk to somebody and just have a dialogue and sort of let us know where that takes us. I don't know the answer.
I know some states are starting to mandate rainwater capture systems, certain counties in some states.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, something to look into.
Yep, and the other, just add to your list of things to think about. There have been some comments about herbicidal use on the islands. And that maybe you can just start thinking about if we should regulate it, how we would regulate it, what the laws are down the road.
Yep. So,
Because we've been working pretty hard here to keep our water clean, and who knows?
I was actually, ironically, I was talking to our water manager today. He was at a lunch meeting that I was at, and he was talking about the quality of the water that we have that's getting pumped through their systems. It's definitely something to look into. The water quality that's coming out of the Wannacomet Water Company and the Sconset Water Company is very good. It's very good water. Wells, well, we can't really necessarily regulate that, but it's something that we can definitely look into as well.
I would just start looking into it if we need to, if we should, or can we deal with it. And there's other things we spray like permethrin to kill the ticks. Well, we really need that.
Yes.
Although that's not the safest thing. So it's
a little
it's issues.
It's a little convenient, but I'll have to dig up my old master's thesis where I specifically did kidney function compared with pesticide use. So I'll have to find a lot of that old information.
When you have nothing to do, and and you don't have to talk to Dukes Road people, those are a couple little issues that you can start formulating that maybe down the road we'll deal with it in a more
Absolutely.
formal fashion once we have the information.
Sounds good.
Can you do that? Thank
Absolutely.
you. Any other issues from the board? If I hear no objections, we will adjourn until next month.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Malcolm, we need to get your signature. Oh, 60 till the 6th. This one too, right?